In this video, I want to share about a temporary setback that I faced last week, or a few days from today, maybe not even a few days, just like 3 or so days. I started off my car, and then I realized it was not roaring the way it's supposed to roar. So it had like a misfire, a bit of vibration and all that. So my initial thought was the ignition coils are bad, because the ignition system is made up of coils and spark plug. So my initial thoughts was, the coils have gone out, but the vibrations were not so much. Sometimes it settles, and so I was like, okay, now this has thrown me off. So I shared with my neighbor, because he also knows a few things that I told him, and this is what it looks like. And then he told me, you should use elimination. I thought about it, and then I'd again second guessed myself about it. So basically what I'm going to be doing in this video is working on elimination. So I've got some spark plugs which I now want to change. The car is a Nissan, so if you have Nissan, you know very well, I've said before, that the engineers overdo themselves. So just changing spark plugs is like a whole ceremony. So let's see how it goes, and that really mirrors how our lives are. We have challenges that we come up, because this for me was a setback, in the sense that I had a list of other things that I needed to maintain on the car. So you're balancing between your normal things and the car things, and just making sure that you don't disadvantage one end. You make sure that you are able to conveniently move from A to B, and at the same time you are able to also take care of the other things that you need to take care of. So for me it was a setback, because I had other things I'd lined up to do on this car, but the engine issue came up. And so if I'm doing elimination, it means I have to go through two things that I've already told you that involve the ignition system, that is the spark plugs and the coil. So right now, regarding the coil, I'm thinking maybe this time round I should try and replace the one that is faulty, if at all that will be the case. But I want to do the spark plugs in any case. I was to do the spark plugs at some point, and so that is the kind of situation that I'm in, just balancing, the budget, balancing, making sure that the car doesn't completely run to a halt, and that kind of thing. So in this video, you're gonna see me going through that process, and then I'm gonna end up with a very, very encouraging word that I hope you'll be hanging around to hear. So the darkness caught up with me, and of course, by the time I was stopping to shoot the video, I'd already, you could see I'd already removed the, what do we call it? I'd already removed the coils, I'd already removed the plugs. I was removing them one by one as I replaced them. Of course, the first plug I started with was a bit problematic, but I dealt with it last. So I was able to just remove one plug at a time, fix the new one that way from left to right. And then I was done with that pretty quickly. Put back the manifold and all the other fittings, started it up. It started still misfiring. So my first suspicion was right, that I was dealing with a coil issue. The ignition coil was gone. But now the good thing is that is twofold. That I was meant to replace plugs, which I had been procrastinating on, and I've looked at the condition of the plugs. They are not too good as you could see them. So that was a plus. And then, of course, when I look at what do we call it now, the ignition coil, I was able to identify. Yesterday, I didn't have a plan on how to identify a coil that is not working, that is not giving enough high voltage so that the spark plug can be able to shoot a spark. And so where I went to buy the plugs is a guy I've been buying from, what do we call it, the service parts. And so he was able just to tell me, when you open it up, look at the plug that has fuel on it, then you will get your culprit. So that's what I basically did. And so I know coil number 3 is the culprit. Now, so tomorrow, God willing, I'm gonna send for it. I'm not gonna go there physically today. I went to pick the plugs physically, but I think tomorrow what I'm gonna do is uh, send so that have the guy deliver the coil. This time round, I'm not replacing the 4 because my maintenance plan is no longer what I had. I've had to jump into the engine because that's a critical component. Without an engine, you'd rather have not any other thing but the engine running, and you'll be good. But if the engine is not running, then you're gonna be in trouble. So that's why I said, even if it's a weekday, I don't have time. I'm gonna maybe probably be running into the night, because what is interesting is that when you're running 3 cylinders, the engine actually gets extremely hot. So I had to come in, wait for it to cool down a bit, and then go in, and then now start removing uh, those parts that I can access, the coils and the plugs. So it's a win-win situation. I've replaced the plugs, which I have been procrastinating on. So I got brand new plugs. Let's see how long they're gonna go. In Kenya, we have so many counterfeits, and that's another problem. And then I've known it's coil number 3 that has an issue. So that's what I'm gonna replace. There are two schools of thought. There are those who feel that you should replace the whole set, and that's what I did the other time. The other time I had one of the coils failing, and so I was able to replace it, to replace the entire set of 4. But this time, I think I'm gonna replace one. So what I'm gonna do is send for one, and because I know it's number 3, come in, replace again, start the vehicle, and see if all is well. So I'm gonna update you on that. And that reminds me of what I'd promised you earlier on, that as I come to the end of this video, I'm gonna give you something interesting. The way this car behaved, or rather the situation I was dealing with, is very similar to our Christian lives, to my Christian life, because you have many components. Not really even the Christian life. Let's just say your life. Your life has many components. There's the economic component, there is the social component, there is the economic component, just to look at it in three broad areas. So just like the vehicle has the engine, and then you have the suspension, and then you have the other part. So I think in order of priority, if the engine has an issue, I'll attend to it immediately. And that's what I did. I came back from a trip, because when I was going for the trip, that's when the vehicle started misbehaving. I came back, um, went home with it, came back to the office, couldn't fix it at the office, and then I went back again home, and that's when I fixed it. So that is essentially what it is. And so when I look at the life of a human being, when I look at my life, when I look at your life, I see those three broad areas: the social, the spiritual, the economic. And so for me, I think in order of priority, the spiritual is number one. So I would be concerned about God, my relationship with God. I'd be concerned about reading the word, prayer, attending fellowship, and whatnot. And then second would be the social. And even in the social, I still have priorities, because family comes first, then the other things. And in terms of family, I'm talking about my immediate family. Then we can look at the other family. So the same thing, the engine, then the suspension, because in the suspension you have the brakes, the tires, the what. Those are important. If your brakes ain't working, you're gonna be in trouble. And so that's how I look at things as far as that is concerned. And so a very important lesson for you from my setback. So it was a small setback, it was a good setback. And so I'll only be, this time round, last time I did 4 coils. This time I'm only going to be doing 1 coil, and that's because of budget. Maybe if something happens, I'll deal with it. The good thing is that I'm fixing those things myself nowadays, so um, it's not pinching me as much as before. So with that, I hope you are blessed, and I hope that you've learned something either about cars or about your life, and how you need to look at the priorities, so that if a priority area has a challenge, is broken down, you jump on it as quickly as possible. So I'm gonna see you in the next video with an update that now, after identifying that problem, and I'm looking at my judgment. I think there's also the element of trusting the first judgment. That's what I do when I'm driving. If I'm going to overtake and I feel like I'm not gonna do this, I just leave it at that. If I feel I'm gonna do this, I go for it. So I have developed a habit of trusting my first judgment. And for this particular one, the first time I had it, I was like, this is the ignition coil. But along the way, I think I started reasoning too much, and then I'm like, I probably need to look at the whole system. But I'm glad I did. You cannot always look at things one way. Sometimes you look at it in 2 different ways, and it can also work. So that's what happened, and I decided, let me just work on the entire system. I think at the end of the day, I just settled on, let me work on the spark plugs, let me find out which coil, let me work on it, and because I'm not doing a set, that is also good for me. So see you in the next video. God bless you so much.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, so this is an update from my yesterday's video, where I was working on the spark plugs, trying to sort out the misfiring issues. So I'm glad that my first thought that it was an ignition coil issue was actually accurate, because that gives me a boost, that I've understood my vehicle, that I know what it needs at a specific time. So right now I'm at my office, and so I just bumped into some money, and so I've just called the guy who supplied me with the spark plugs, because he has the coils. He's told me he needs the part number, or he needs a sample. So that means I've quickly now gone where the car is, because I parked at the far end of the compound, so that I could be able to maybe dismantle and get out that one coil, and then then rush with it, or find a way of getting the other replacement, and then from there I can give you another update in this video that everything is alright. So the procedure is the same like I showed you in the other video. You have this manifold, which is the one that is hiding the coils, which is this. So the coil in question is this coil here. Let me see if I'm able to catch it nicely. So this is one of the coils, and then we have a coil. Let me see if it can focus. Let me just adjust it. Great. So we have this coil here, which is the culprit, and so getting there, you can see, is a bit complicated, but not very complicated. It's not that it can't be done. So what you need is a way of getting these out, and getting these out is very easy. You just dislocate this, and then this entire unit is one. Get it out. Make sure you take care of small things like this one here, and then you'll be good to go. So that is what I want to do very quickly. It's the same as the previous video, and then everything will be okay. So I'm just from dashing to town. It took me about 20 minutes to remove that coil, and then another 1.5 hours to be able to dash to town and come back. And then I've got the new one here, which I'm gonna show you in a second, and then I'm gonna put that in. It follows the same procedure as I was replacing the spark plugs. Yeah, so that's how it looks like. I covered that hole. This is the new coil. You can see it. So I'm only replacing one, and I think I contributed to the breaking down of the coil because I was supposed to change the spark plugs, which I didn't, and because that was 2,300 kilometers ago. But I think because of the many things that about life, that kind of skipped at the back of my mind. And so what we have now is this situation. And I've just been looking at the condition of this engine compartment. I think I need to have some time when I can be able to clean it out and just make sure that everything is good. Yeah, so that's it. These parts are related, just like in the body of Christ. One part is related to the other. The way Paul says, the eye cannot say that it cannot do without the arm. They both need each other. So in this case, the coil needs the spark plugs, the spark plugs needs the coil, and if they both are in good condition, then they all are able to do the correct thing. They both are able to give longevity. So let me put this back in, and then I'll see how everything goes. So the procedure is the same, just like I was able to do in the last video. Yeah, so this is how the old coil looks like. I really hope it can focus, and you can see, if you look closely there, you'll see there's some damage. You look at the surface, you'll see some irregularities, and so that's how it looked like. Yeah, so I've started up the car. It starts well, and so that's a problem solved. So what I would say is there was a little bit of a challenge in terms of how the vehicle was running. I initially knew where the problem could be, but I just decided to pursue the entire trail. And that's interesting, because at the end of the day, I'm a beneficiary. The engine is sounding well, it's running well. Now the next thing I need to do is get a few days and just deal with this engine compartment. There are gaskets that need replacement, there's cleaning that needs to be done, just to make sure that everything is good. So that's what it is, and that is just a lesson that when your most critical part has a challenge or a failure or a problem, you pursue every part of it and make sure that it is working. For example, I told you my priority, like the car, the priority is the engine. Now my priority is God's spiritual, or the spiritual aspect of my life. So when it has a challenge, I pursue everything about it. You look at prayer, you look at Bible study, you look at communion, all those things that deal with God, and then you are able to sort it out. So God bless you, and see you in the next one.